Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another historical humans heritage. And on today's episode, we are traveling to the land down under, and today we are going to look at Kakadu National Park in the Northern Territories of Australia. And yeah, this is a unique archaeological and ethnological reserve because it has been continuously inhabited for over 40,000 years and has a combination of cave paintings, rock carvings, archaeological sites, and the people that still live there, the Aborigines.
Yep, yep. The Aboriginals are still there, and because of the continuous habitation by the Aboriginals and general, like near total lack of interference from, uh, shall we say, the rest of Australia, the biodiversity of this region is almost completely intact, and it's a beautiful example of human beings living with a series of ecosystems more or less in harmony with it since before the Ice Age. That's how long people have been here.
A beautiful symbiotic relationship. And at that point, there would have also been a lot more land nearby because the northern part of Australia had a lot of territory submerged after the melting of the last ice age. So there would have been more land bridges and more connections with other areas nearby. But quite an interesting, beautiful part of the country that not many people get a chance to really talk about or even see.
Yeah,
You know, many people think of Australia as being a dark or a desert mainly, but there's a lot of diversity up in this area. Some of the highest density of diversity.
yep, yeah. There's sort of like a couple different areas where you get away from the coast, but you're not so far in that you've hit the outback yet that have just an incredible array of ecosystems. And I believe, uh, yeah, this is the largest national park in Australia, and it holds, I think, one of the most ecologically diverse parks in the world. It holds that title, and is this thing is massive, and it it's home to some, in addition to all the natural stuff, which is breathtaking. It's home to all kinds of rock art and cave paintings that have been constructed and maintained for thousands and thousands of years by the Aboriginal people of Australia.
Yeah, those cave paintings are incredible, and the carvings, they're
Yeah,
very detailed and very beautiful. And it's kind of cool to see that history kind of intersect with the modern day.
yeah,
And we talk a lot about these areas, and one of the main talking points in a lot of modern archaeology is how do people live and interact with their landscapes. And one of the ways we're able to kind of do that and see that is by looking at these cultures and these people that still actively live those ways of life, that lifestyle. Because from there, we're able to gather a ton. We're able to learn so much about how they interact and how they work as a group. It's just very interesting, and especially in an area like this where the lifestyle, the way of life, is very much carved into the landscape. These
yeah,
people would not be have been able to survive here had they not adapted and learned and basically used it to their advantageous positioning.
yeah, yeah. And like one of the key things with this heritage site in particular is that it is both an ancient cultural landscape and a lived cultural landscape. And that's kind of something that gets a little bit of a disconnect in people's heads a lot of the time. That like the culture that we are living today, the lives and rituals and beliefs that we're having today are somehow not part of history and everything that came before and all those other things. Like, and here is a very clear, very prime example of how untrue that mindset is, that you can be living a cultural landscape. You can be living in history as a part of it, as a continuation of what came before, because that that's what's on display. That's what all human interaction is.
And this is where I'm going to dabble a little too much into archaeological theory, even for my own liking. But this is
Here we go.
where agency as a concept really does have some legitimacy and some roots, because by interacting with the landscape almost interacts conversely with you, and you give meaning and purpose to it as you derive that yourself. And in situations like this has been pretty much unmolested by human development for a very long time, for millennia. And they highlight in this that it has escaped any European settlement, which is quite frankly good, because European mentality is to make the landscape bend around you versus the other way around. You know, you control all these elements, and this is the people who live in this region still maintain a hunter-gatherer lifestyle. And this is in an area of Australia where you see the convergence of four of their major river systems in a tropical setting. It's very interesting. It's very cool. And some interesting facts is this contains over 1/3 of Australia's bird population, a quarter of their land mammals, and an exceptionally high number of reptile, frog, and fish species. Yeah, like it's fascinating to see, especially because in a lot of these areas that we go to, like in a lot of mainland Europe and to some degree a lot of Africa and Asia, the landscape has changed so much in that time frame that we can estimate and we can get a good idea of what the landscape looked like. But this is a direct representation of what that landscape was and how people had adapted for it.
Yep. Oh yeah, definitely. And honestly, one of the really nice things with this park is, this place is massive. This UNESCO heritage site is absolutely huge. It is almost a full 2 million hectares, which is honestly, it could be its own country if it wanted to, with how large it is. And one of the things with that is they've actually, for the sake of preservation, quote unquote, roped off most of the park. The only people that are allowed in most places are the like park rangers, the conservationists, and the Aboriginal people that have traditionally lived there. It's like the part of the park you can see that you're allowed in is a beautiful ecological place, but so much of it is exclusive to the people that have always lived there. That, like that's just a really nice way of preserving what's there and preventing change and damage, while also allowing the world to see the wonderful and beautiful things that exist in this place. It's not total isolation for fear of destroying everything, but it is a separation between the window that the public gets to look in and all the precious heritage and environment that, humanity has a duty to protect.
And to their credit, the Australian government is doing a lot to protect the park. I mean, it's under the Environment Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act of 1999, which is known as the Act, which helped establish the park's management plan and relevant decisions as to how to handle and go about doing things with the park, and gives a board for people to represent the traditional owners, and it gives a sound legal framework. But then it also identified quite a few areas of issues that could potentially arise and how they plan on countering that. Firstly is tourism. Because of the inscription of this site as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, like many others, it began increasing tourism to the region. And as such, the park actively encourages visitors to enjoy the park in ways that don't adversely affect its natural and cultural values. One of those key things is a pretty common one among hikers, but no trash in, no trash, like, You basically bring it in and you take it out with you. No leave waste. You take out what you bring in, and that in a lot of ways could even go as far as to human refuse. You don't want to leave it in. You don't want to contaminate the landscape, the people, or the environment. And then another one that they highlighted is mining, because there are a lot of small scale uranium mines in the area, and they also work to try and rehabilitate a lot of the pre existing sites to reduce any physical and radiological hazards of the old mines. And they also will heavily scrutinize any future mining that will go on. So, they're paying attention to it. And then the other thing that they're doing is working to try and preserve the rock art sites. And that is from humans, from water, vegetation, wasps, termites, even other feral animals. So it's kind of interesting to see that they are actually working to save and to protect. And they're even going as far as to try and combat introduced flora and fauna, which includes the control and prevention of introduced non-native species of plants and the removal of non-native Asian water buffaloes.
Yeah. And and in recent years, cane toads have gotten into the area. And as soon as they became aware that cane toads figured out this exists, the Australian government opened a whole new research grant into how to control cane toads.
Australia has had a history with wildlife management projects. The dingo fence, the emu war, they've had a couple of them.
Things usually don't go well for them. The rabbits.
Yeah, it's always the rabbits.
No, I am worried because cane toads, they get in places and there's just no getting them out. So I appreciate that there's an entire just research proposal under the Australian government to just research any possible way to contain cane toads.
But then the other and probably the biggest potential impactor to this region is climate change, where we're seeing large amounts of saltwater incursions into the freshwater systems, along with changing and significantly increasing frequency and veracity of fires, and along with increased potential of the spread of exotic flora and fauna, aka non-natives. So they're trying to figure out a way to try and mitigate any future incursions while also communicating additional actions to try and anticipate the effects of future climate change. They're trying to build a resilient future, trying to prevent additional damages and additional problems from arising. They're trying to be anticipatory towards their decisions that they're making. So it's kind of a cool one. This is an interesting one that combines both the ecological and humanistic natures of the site. It's very, very cool. But I think that's probably a great point for us to wrap up on this UNESCO heritage site, Kakadu National Park. Let us know what your thoughts are down below, and we will see you in the next video.